Well, good morning, Abilene and Big Country. Today is Good Friday. Obviously with me is Rick and also Pastor Jeff Hatcher. He is the pastor at Wiley United Methodist, and we invited him on this very special day to give us some words of encouragement and hope. But before we get to Pastor Jeff and before I get to Rick, I'll go over a couple of things. So as promised, we will communicate any calls for service related to people who are violating the governor's executive order and or the declaration and order passed by the mayor and city council. So just a couple of them. We had a call at Redbud Park at 4:20 in the afternoon yesterday. Calling party's upset that there are at least 30 persons in the park. They're using the walking track, which is lawful, and their children are playing on the playground and exercise equipment. So if we digest this one, you can use the walking track, the playground, and the exercise equipment. You cannot. Remember that the mayor and the city council shut that down during their declaration and order. So use the walking track. Everybody then asked, okay, what about social distancing? Yes, you are required to social distance. I run with several friends in the morning, and so we also do the social distancing. So enough on that one. We had a call, 3200 block of North 3rd. This is an apartment complex, and a person was concerned that a 50-year-old male and his girlfriend recently traveled from New York to, I guess, New Orleans, and that they were not quarantined. So if you'll recall, the governor mandated that the Texas Department of Public Safety, specifically Highway Patrol, meet all off-boarding passengers from airlines, to include even in Abilene, when they are coming from a place like New Orleans. So my presumption would be that that occurred and that those persons would be quarantined. So obviously we contacted this person, we identified him, and I spoke to Annette Lerma, our health director, this morning and passed this information on to her. We had a call at the 1900 block of Westmoreland. This was reportedly a gathering of 10 or more people, lots of cars, and loud music. By the time the officer arrived on scene, they spoke to the owner of the residence. He stated it was only his family and that there were less than 10 people inside. We confirmed that. On that note, Rick and I received this request from a viewer. I was hoping you could provide a bit of clarification on tomorrow's crime update. We have neighbors that twice in the last week had a mix of friends and family over to their house in the evening. The first time there were more than 10. Last night possibly only 9 or 10. It's my understanding that under the limited shelter in place, we should only be at our own homes, not having or attending parties or dinner at anyone's home, regardless of whether there are less than 10 or not. Is this correct? So, this is tricky. So what you have to do is we're going to have to go back to the executive order. And the executive order, the most recent one, which is GA-14, doesn't specify more than 10. If you'll notice, the recent governor's order did away with the number of 10, instead said, and I quote, "Every person in Texas shall, except where necessary to provide or obtain essential services, minimize social gatherings and minimize in-person contact with people who are not in the same household." So I think that directly answers her question. So let's just take a hypothetical. Myself, Jeff, and Rick, we want to go over to Brad's house. And there are going to be 12 to 15 of us gather, but we're going to be inside the confines of his own home. That technically is violating this executive order. Not because we have more than 10, but because it says in here, we shall minimize social gatherings and we shall minimize in-person contact with people who are not in the same household. So that would be inclusive of us. So, clear as mud? Probably. Just continue to call us and we'll continue to try to apply the law. All right. Does that help answer that one, Rick?
I think it does.
Okay.
Clear as mud.
Yes, sometimes these are very clear as mud. Let's see. Got all that. We just had some additional calls, kind of the same thing. More than 10 people were gathered, large crowds. So again, we're going to continue to respond to those. We are going to seek voluntary cooperation. I'll just tell you right now, we have not made any arrests related to these offenses. So people have voluntarily complied upon being contacted. But our encouragement to you all is don't have us respond to begin with. Please voluntarily comply from the onset. So, Rick, pick it up from there.
All right, no arrest for those violations, but we did have 5 arrests overnight, slightly up from the previous day. This first one here happened 4:07 p.m. yesterday. Officer was dispatched to criminal trespass in progress at 4350 Southwest Drive. That's the South Side Walmart. Guy was criminally trespassed before all this. He violated that, kept going back there until we took him into custody. This other one happened at 8:25 p.m. Defendant was contacted reference of disturbance in progress. Defendant was found to have assaulted a young child. This person was 18. The victim was a little over 10 years old. Pushed his head into a wall. We obviously arrested him for assault family violence. Another one here occurred at 9:36 p.m. This was a 27-year-old female reports that her 27-year-old husband assaulted her with a deadly weapon at their residence at the south side of town. The female had a severe injury from the assault. In fact, it states that she got stabbed in one of her shoulders. So she refused to pursue charges, but obviously we arrested him for obvious reasons, for safety there. And this last one that I'll talk about, this one occurred at 2:46. I'm assuming that's probably a.m., so early this morning. Officer contacted defendants in reference to a call for service. The victim, the girlfriend of the suspect, stated that she was getting into bed and was trying to get some covers. We've all been there, I think. Says the victim stated that she pushed him over to get covers and that he got angry and then started hitting her. So we arrested him for assault family violence as well. That's it.
Yeah. All right. Pastor Jeff, Good Friday. What's it mean to us?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Chief. Good Friday. Christians have remembered this day for around 2,000 years as the day that Jesus was crucified, which doesn't sound like a very good day. But we know that the end of that story is Easter, so we celebrate that. But I wanted to kind of unpack that a little bit more this morning. There are, in the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, there's 29 times that Jesus was telling the disciples that what was going to happen to him when he went to Jerusalem. I want to read just one of those 29 examples out of Luke 18. Jesus took the 12 aside and told them, "We are going up to Jerusalem, and everything that is written by the prophets about the Son of Man will be fulfilled. He will be handed over to the Gentiles. They will mock him, insult him, spit on him, flog him, and kill him. And on the 3rd day, he will rise again." Now, so set the scene here. Jesus, for weeks, had been telling the disciples what awaited him in Jerusalem. And yet, he went. In fact, in Mark 10, it says this. They were on their way up to, speaking of Jesus and the disciples, they were on their way up to Jerusalem with Jesus leading the way. Don't you love that? Jesus had been telling the disciples what awaited him in Jerusalem. Now, I don't know about you, friends, but if I know that's what's awaiting me somewhere and it's that way, I'm going that way. But Jesus, for some reason, why would he do that? Why would he know what awaited him, and yet he's leading the way into Jerusalem? Well, the short answer is because he loves you. He loves you. So as we celebrate this Good Friday, as we remember the sacrifice of the cross, I spoke to my church this week about this, but because of the cross, we can mark it down, carve it in stone. We are loved. And not only are we loved, but we have nothing to fear. This is a time really of uncertainty and in many cases anxiety and fear. I want you to know, because what Jesus has done for you and because you are his child, we have nothing to fear. Our future is secure. So that's my encouragement for us today, that in the midst of all this fear and uncertainty, just remember the cross this day.
Yes, sir.
Stay strong.
Very good counsel. Well, while Rick was going through the crime report, I referenced earlier, the governor's executive order. Remember, that's a Class B. So if you're violating that, that's an arrest. I want to take us back to the actual local order passed by the mayor and the council, specific to the question posed by one of our viewers. And so let's say all of us go over to this large party at this person's house. You're also violating our local order, which can be enforced as a citation. So everybody in that house could be issued a citation, because it says when people need to leave their places of residence, they should at all times as reasonably comply with social distancing requirements as defined in Section 14. This also enjoins upon us no more than no additional persons beyond the 10. So all of that's still in the local order. So I think in the scenario given, you're probably looking at an offense on the state level and also at the local level. So, but all of this pales in comparison to what Pastor Jeff shared with us. So our future is indeed secure, and you all have a blessed Easter on behalf of all of us at the Abilene Police Department, both sworn and civilian. Blessings.